You're so very gracious and you're so very kind. Thank you very much. I'm always humbled. Wherever we go, we meet great people. And many people are looking for answers in this day when it appears so often like there isn't answers. Today, we're going to instill in your heart hope, because there really is. And you're going to journey with me as we travel down this road through this little bit of history that brought us to this place that we sit here today. It's my hope and my prayer that coming out of this will be goodness for the many people that you work with, that you associate with. So thank you. Thank you for having me come. I gratefully acknowledge you. You know, this morning, when you and I woke up and we had our breakfast, so did 6.4 million American children. And I'm going to talk about American stats. You need to understand that these stats are throughout the world. It's a global condition. But these 6.4 million American children have to take a methylphenidate-based product in order to think appropriately, in order to have proper cognitive function. There's something wrong that they have to take Ritalin, Concerta, Focalin, any one of these products, Adderall, Strattera, to change the way that their brain operates. This is according to the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia. Add to that 6.4 million American children, the 2 million American children that suffer with autism. The new kid on the block, and the reason why I say it's the new kid is because the numbers are absolutely incredibly increasing on a monthly basis. Let's listen to NBC News as they tell us more about it.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. Brian is on assignment tonight. I'm Lester Holt. New government findings are tonight providing a stunning and eye-opening look at the growing number of American families living with autism. Based on the latest survey data, the Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 American children has been identified with an autism spectrum disorder. That's about 30% higher than previous surveys. Autism spectrum encompasses a broad range of developmental brain disorders affecting, among other things, speech and social interaction. These new findings bring renewed urgency to finding the cause of autism and understanding why it seems to be on the increase.
What? 1 in 68? Let's talk about 30 years ago when it was 1 in 25,000. What's happening? There's an absolute epidemic out there. This morning or this afternoon or this evening, 30 million American adults will take an antidepressant. Those controversial medications that have been shown and have been proven and established to, in some cases, create homicidal and or suicidal ideation. Hey, we all love Dr. Oz, don't we? Recently, he was hauled before a U.S. Senate subcommittee hearing, and they tore him apart over his statement in this production, which is entitled The Myth of Antidepressants.
Today, one of the most important shows that we're going to do this year about a subject that I am passionate to sound the alarm on, antidepressants. For 20 years, you've been told they're a miracle cure for your low energy, your blue moods, your late night anxiety. But new research is bringing terrible evidence to light. Antidepressants don't work for most patients. They can actually make your problems worse. They may even cause deadly harm. And most frightening of all, if you're a woman between 40 and 60, chances are about 1 in 4 you're on them. Today, I have only one question. How on earth did this happen? In 1987, a new type of antidepressant was introduced. It was called Prozac, and it revolutionized the way Americans coped with their darker emotions. Imagine a single pill, safe to use and easy to get from your doctor, to cure your depression. Patients couldn't get enough, and prescriptions soared. Soon, a slew of similar drugs hit the market. Today, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. About 1 in 10 of us is taking an antidepressant. That's more than 30 million Americans. But new research has uncovered shocking evidence that these powerful drugs are not helping any more than a placebo. Add to that, some antidepressants have horrible side effects, including nausea, irritability, and sexual dysfunction. They can also increase the risk of birth defects and, worse, suicide in teens and young adults. And most alarming, they may actually be changing your brain. What do you need to know about antidepressants before you pop one of these happy pills?
Whoa, you see, it's all part of that huge epidemic that's eating at the roots of our society, at the roots of government, at its social systems, at the church, at the family. It's huge. It's preponderous when you think of how many people struggle on a daily basis, and yet we have to find hope. Sadly, my family was part of that epidemic. I lost my sweetheart Debbie, my first wife, to a suicide in 1994. She was diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling. And while she didn't do well, she did the best that she could to cope with it. She decided to actually go on to a medication. And within 2 weeks of starting Prozac, she ended up suiciding. She absolutely lost it. Now, I need to give you a caveat. Number one, these individuals do not line up to sign up for these issues. It's nothing of their own making. This can happen to anybody at any time. We see it all the time. We have people that come to us that don't have any genetic lines whatsoever with any mental condition, and all of a sudden they end up in an issue. I'll give you the answers, the actual scientific answers as to why that happens later on. Number two, we are not anti-medication. There are times when we actually recommend these medications. Number three, we are not anti-medical. We're looking for better answers. Sadly, Debbie was one of the Prozac suicides. Her father, Gordon, took his life 16 years before she did with an overdose of medications. My family was in an absolute state of trauma. This is Autumn, diagnosed bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling. This young lady here was born with autistic spectrum features and suffered with a disorder called trichotillomania. This young boy here, diagnosed hypomanic at the age of 16. Young lady here, diagnosed MDD, major depressive disorder with fibromyalgia. Young lady on her mother's lap at the age of 11 became schizophrenic, seeing people that weren't there, hearing voices, major mood lability all over the map, one moment laughing, 1 minute crying incessantly. And then my son Joseph, diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling. And of course, Mom, who had the same diagnoses, bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling, and sadly ended up taking her life. At the time of her death, 2 of our children were in a terrible, terrible place, Joseph and Autumn. Autumn, highly medicated. At the end point, she's medicated with 5 medications, has gone through major changes in medications. Nothing would hold her stable. She was on Haldol, Rivotril, Epivel, Ativan, and Cogentin. In spite of the medications, it didn't resolve the issues. She couldn't function as a mom. She had a young baby that was brought forth out of their marriage, born super ADHD. Because you see, moms with bipolar affective disorder, according to the research, not ours, will give birth to children with ADHD. And by the time that those children hit puberty, in many, many cases, they're diagnosed with the same issue, bipolar affective disorder. Joseph was out of control. At the age of 15, had a federal weapons charge. He was extremely dangerous. He says that he was everything that a schoolyard shooting is made from. And the medication didn't help that at all. In fact, it actually steered him in the wrong direction. Discovery Health Channel did a 1-hour documentary on the Stephan family. And I want to show you a small excerpt. This was played in over 60 nations in 30 different languages. Here's Joseph.
You are are watching Discovery Health Channel.
You know, I was quite certain that I could kill almost anyone. I could do these things without even thinking twice about it.
A family's legacy. Bipolar disorder, a debilitating mental illness. By January of 1996, Tony Stephan was at his wit's end. His wife had committed suicide after a decade-long battle with bipolar disorder. Then his daughter and son were diagnosed with the same disease. 15-year-old Joe was tormented, too, by suicidal thoughts.
I was always quite certain that I would never make it through, to next summer or to the beginning of school again, stuff like that. I was always expected, I kind of expected myself to be dead by then.
And Joseph was dangerous. He was obsessed with knives.
I was very paranoid of being attacked by, government kind of things, SWAT teams and stuff. So I would stockpile just about any kind of weapon I could get my hands on. Knives, even rifles, just about anything that I could maim or destroy. I would have piled away somewhere.
When I saw him in early April of 1995, there were a lot of concerns about Joe and his family. His family was actually quite terrified of him, and he was delusional at times. Joe had verbally threatened to kill his siblings and his stepmother several times. I felt at this time that he was definitely bipolar. I prescribed lithium in April of 1995. There was some concern about his compliance with medication of lithium.
That was just a horrendous feeling. I hated that. Whenever I would take that, I would get the shakes and just feel so crappy. Like it made me feel not all there, like physically. I just didn't feel good at all. I would just get all dark and dingy. I was quite certain that I could kill almost anyone or anything, It even scared myself that I could do these things without even thinking twice about it.
You see, this is exactly what we were living with on a daily basis. He would threaten to kill the family at night when they were sleeping. It was terrifying. My sons came to me and they said, Dad, you got to get him out of the house. And I couldn't do it. It was literally ripping my heart out. Here I've lost my father-in-law. I've had to bury him. I've had to bury my wife of 23 years of marriage. And now I'm losing my family one person at a time. And I was helpless. There wasn't anything that I could do to correct it. Yeah, these wonderful small-town doctors, they're good. They were doing everything in their power to try and help, to try and correct it. But nothing was working. And I was in a terrible, terrible place as a father. I remarried about 8 months after Debbie's death to a wonderful lady, Barbara. She's with us today. And she's been a real blessing. But it was an incredible experience as we tried to hold that family together. She said to me, Tony, there isn't any way that we're going to get this thing to work. You can't keep this family together. We've got to get some professional help. Yes, these are wonderful doctors. They're doing what they can. But we need to get some top-notch psychiatric help. And so she pushed her way into the University of Calgary and got an appointment set up with one of Western Canada's most renowned psychiatrists. About 3 months into it, we finally were able to go see her. So on that appointed day, Joseph and Barbara and myself drove up there to visit with this doctor. We got into the office. I started to explain to her what we're going through. She said, stop, Mr. Stephan, please, spare me the gory details. It's not going to help. I hear this every day. Thousands and thousands of patients that I've worked with. You're not alone. Understand that. But that didn't help. That didn't help. She was trying to help. But knowing that other people were suffering the same way just intensified my feelings. There must be an answer, I explained to her. I said, this boy will never have a child to hold of his own. He'll never have a sweetheart to embrace. There's no way that he could stay in a relationship. He will never have an education or a career pursuit. I understand that, Mr. Stephan, said the psychiatrist. We're going to put together, we're going to find a cocktail of medications, and we're going to get him sedated. I said, sedated? I don't want him sedated. I want him normalized. And she said, Mr. Stephan, your expectations are far too high. It doesn't work like that. And I guess I just pushed the envelope a little bit too far, and finally she said, Mrs. Stephan, I want you to take Joseph. I want you to go out in the waiting room, and you close the waiting room door behind you. When that door closed, it was like a shotgun going off in my face. Mr. Stephan, what's wrong with you? Don't you get it? What you see is what you've got, and you're not going to change this picture. She had a large manual on her desk called the DSM-4, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, Volume 4. It's used to delineate or for the purposes of showing what each one of these disorders looks like. Here's what schizophrenia looks like. Here's what depression looks like, anxiety disorders, ADHD, whatever. And she opened it to the affective disorders section because that's what he had, bipolar affective disorder. She said, Mr. Stephan, can you read what it says here in the book? It says that this disorder becomes more chronic with age. That means it's going to get worse, not better. Look what it says here. It says that this is a recurrent disorder. That means, Mr. Stephan, it's incurable. It's not going to go away. And Mr. Stephan, sadly, you need to understand there's a very high potential for your son to suicide just like his mother and his grandfather did. You know, when I heard that, I just lost all hope. It was like it drained out of my life. And I stood up, and I wasn't rude to her. I just said, thanks for your time, and I walked out, and I closed the door behind me. That ride home was like a ride to the eternities in hell, because I realized if somehow, if some way there wasn't an answer out there, I was going to lose my family, the most precious part of my life. You know, it's interesting. I'm sure you've all heard that saying that there are no atheists in the foxholes. It's absolutely true. And while I was never an atheist, I've always believed in God. I've always believed that we're here for a divine reason to learn and grow and learn how to be merciful like God is and forgiving and filled with love and all those good things that we learn in this life. But I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that God would send people to have this experience, because you see, it's not their experience. You and I have control over our destiny. When we leave this room today, we can go left, right, center. We can do anything we want. We can move to China. We can get a degree. We can do this. We can do that. But these people, sadly enough, are caught up in that brain chemistry issue. And they don't have their agency. They don't have their destiny within reach of their own hands. And so I couldn't wrap my head around that. I had a problem with that. And I couldn't believe that God would actually send his children to go through this. And so something in my heart said no. And as I would pray, as I would fast, as I would search about this situation, the feeling always came to me that it's going to be okay, but it wasn't. We were in a terrible, terrible place. And that this was an anomaly. It wasn't meant to be like this. These disorders with people losing their lives to them. And I started to search, and I started to continue to fast and pray. And I'm looking in scientific journals. Somewhere, someplace, there must be an answer. And over a period of time, people started bringing little pieces of the puzzle, not even aware that the things that they were saying and bringing were adding to this composite. And I found things. And slowly that puzzle came together, and it basically had the word nutrition written across it. I started to put my son on different nutrient therapies. Did they work? No. But I knew that that was the answer. Deep in the recess of my heart, I knew that there was an answer there. And I kept on pursuing it. And I started to put my son and my daughter onto these different nutrient supplements. Of course, they didn't work at first. We kept on going. I kept on pursuing it prayerfully. January 18th of 1996, almost 2 clock years since my wife has disappeared into that dark chasm of suicide, I put my son on another formula of nutrition. It was an interesting issue because 3 days later, he ran out of his lithium prescription. And my wife, Barbara, and I had a family discussion over whether or not she would go down to the pharmacy to refill the prescription. I call it a family discussion. She calls it a full-blown fight. Now, I got to ask the gentleman here in this meeting, this is a question for you. Who do you think won? Well, you know already. So she went down to the pharmacy and she picked up this bottle and she brought it home, and she was really sorrowful, not because of the fight, but she was sorrowful because of the situation that we were in. She was so afraid. I was afraid. Everybody was afraid. This is crazy. How can you put your son on nutrition, these high-level disorders, and expect that you're going to see a result? It's whatever. It's an incredible thought. And I said, you know, Barb, we just got to keep on going. I know you're afraid. I'm afraid too. And she gave me that bottle, and I took it, and I walked up that old winding staircase in that old house that we lived in, into our bedroom, went into the bathroom, and I opened up the medicine cabinet. I can still feel myself doing it today, setting that bottle on the second shelf and closing the door behind it. I want you to know that I never, ever had to take that bottle down and use it. Because within 30 days, this young man no longer experienced any symptoms whatsoever of bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling. It was gone. He got better. I remember sitting with him on the couch. I guess you probably call it a sofa down here. Up in Canada, we call it a couch. You call it a couch here? Okay. Sitting on the couch with him about 6 weeks into this, and him saying to me, Dad, what happened to me? He got that consciousness, you see. Where was I? Why was I so angry? Why did I want to hurt everybody? Hey, Joe, that wasn't you. That wasn't you. That was just the chemistry. And you know, he's never, ever looked back. He got better. You know, the principal in that small town where we lived saw this miracle. All of a sudden, this raging monster that he thought this boy was became quiet and calm. He wasn't sedated. He became intelligent. He was able to do everything. He was doing his homeworks. The teachers loved him. The students weren't complaining anymore. The parents weren't phoning anymore. So he started telling everybody in the town. Pretty soon our phone was ringing all over the place. Hello, yes, this is Mr. Stephan. Oh, I see. Your wife has been depressed for 11 years. Would it help? You heard about this from who? From the principal. Okay. I'm not sure if it would work for depression. My son had bipolar disorder. Let's give it a try. Let's see if it'll do something. And it worked. Hello. Yes, this is Tony Stephan. Oh, hi, Mrs. So-and-so. Your 12-year-old boy is kicking holes in the walls, and what does he have? ADHD? He has to have an aide, and they don't want to keep him in school anymore? Do I think that what happened to my son would assist? I'm not sure. He didn't have ADHD. He had bipolar. Let's give it a try. And it worked. And then the phone call from the older gentleman 2 blocks away that nobody knew. Hi, this is John. My wife, Gloria, has struggled with schizophrenia for 18 years. She sees spiders crawling on her body. She has the suicidal voices. The only reason that she ever rises is to eat or to have a bathroom break. And I take her into the city of Lethbridge to see her doctor about every 2 or 3 months to get prescriptions refilled. I heard about what you're doing in the Handicap Society. Do you think that this would help my wife? Well, John, I don't know. That's an awful long road to hoe. Let's give it a try. And it worked. 6 months later, she's working in that small town in the hospital, volunteering. She got so good. You know, I realized from that we were onto something major here. And so we approached Dr. Bonnie J. Kaplan at the University of Calgary. At that time, she was the Director of Behavioral Research for the University of Calgary. And her and Dr. Stephen Simpson listened to us and didn't believe it. They were very skeptical. She said, I've heard all the true believers before, and you're one of them. And this is snake oil that you're selling. And I said, we're not selling anything. We're trying to get some research on this. And you know, she listened very skeptically. And Dr. Stephen Simpson, who is a psychiatrist and also a PhD in biochemistry, looked at it. And he said, well, there's nothing here that's going to hurt anybody, but it's not going to help with bipolar. These are intractable disorders. You're not going to change this. But I'll give it a try. I'll take the very first 10 patients that have been highly medicated, that the medications haven't had a good effect on at all, and we'll put them on this and we'll do some research. And so they did. The Canadian Psychiatric Association, that's like your American Psychiatric Association, only 10 times smaller, they decided that they wanted to hear about this because they were hearing these rumors about this thing that was taking place at the University of Calgary. So they invited Dr. Kaplan, Dr. Stephen Simpson to put on a presentation at their annual general conference. CTV National News, one of our national news carriers, were there. And here's how the story rolled out.
Tonight on CTV News, can a nutritional supplement help people suffering with a troubling mental disorder? CTV's Avis Favreau has an exclusive report you won't want to miss. Watch CTV News tonight at 11.
It all started as one man's desperate attempt to save his family from mental illness, but he may have discovered a whole new way to treat bipolar disorder. In medical news tonight, there is new reason for optimism for sufferers of bipolar disorder, a condition that causes manic depression and a condition that affects hundreds of thousands of Canadians. According to findings of a small study presented today to the Canadian Psychiatric Association, a combination of vitamins and minerals may alleviate the disorder's debilitating symptoms. CTV's medical specialist Avis Favreau reports.
Bipolar illness ran through Tony Stephan's family. His wife, Debbie, committed suicide. His son and daughter were also ill and on drugs that didn't work.
She had already been taking medication for over 4.5 years, and she was going to suicide. It wasn't helping. My son was on 900 milligrams of lithium per day and was absolutely out of control.
Then he learned of minerals and vitamins given to pigs with a nervous disorder. In desperation, he gave a variation of the supplements to his son.
Within 30 days, he no longer experienced any of the symptoms of bipolar affective disorder.
Both his children, he says, are still on the supplements and are well some 4 years later. Now, doctors at the University of Calgary say they have intriguing early results from a group of 10 bipolar patients on the same supplements. Most had less depression, fewer manic episodes, and improved mental well-being.
The decrease in their symptoms is of a magnitude that is very impressive. Any medication that ever had this effect would catch a lot of people's attention.
And most have cut their standard drug use by 2/3.
This is an entirely different approach to the standard medical therapies that we use now.
But Steve Morton, who was part of the Calgary study, said the nutrients helped put his life in order after the bipolar illness left him suicidal and in hospital.
This has brought me to recognize a new me, and has allowed me to become, a new person.
In fact, the Alberta government is investing more than $500,000 to fund more rigorous studies of these supplements.
And they did. Now, I need to give you a little bit of an update. In there it says that Autumn and Joseph have been well for 4 years. No, it's 19 now. They've never gone back. They've never been there. And I'm not trying to be cheeky, but what happened to that statement from the psychiatrist when she said, this disorder becomes more chronic with age? This disorder is recurrent. That means it's incurable. And Mr. Stephan, sadly, your son may even suicide, just like his mother and grandfather did. It's not true. It's not true. We received an enormous blessing. This was an absolute answer to prayer. And they've been well all those years, never looking back. Again, never having to take a medication. Steve Morton got his degree. He said he never could have done it. He was in and out of the hospital. He's been successful in his life. Dr. Kaplan makes a statement in there. If there was ever any drug or medication that had this kind of an effect, it would catch a lot of people's attention. To me, it was a wonderful godsend. Let's listen to Autumn speaking to us for just a minute through Discovery Health Channel.
Hey, do you want to come over and look at the album?
Sure.
They told me when I was on the Haldol and a number of other medications, you know, maybe we'd want to consider having an operation so there wouldn't be any more risk of pregnancy, because the effects on a fetus would just be horrendous.
He was actually with me. Oh yeah.
I'm just so glad I didn't take that advice. I've got 2 little girls now. It's kind of like starting over and getting a real life. It's been good.
It has been good. Here's Joseph.
I was quite excited by the idea of something new. You know, maybe something would make me feel better. And I was willing to take a chance with that.
On January 18th, 1996, Joseph took his first daily dose. Even after 5 days on the supplement, Joe felt better.
Once that stuff started to kick in, it's just like a fog lifted, you know, and I could see what was right and wrong and how I should be acting.
And Joe has graduated from high school and works as a forklift operator.
I can do whatever I want now. You know, I know that I can function when I have to. I don't have to worry about having a relapse or anything, you know. Things are looking up quite a bit.
19 years of being solid, of being the real Joe and the real Autumn. You see, it's amazing the answers that can come when you really search for them. That's the blessing that's involved with this thing. To me, it's a promise of hope. When I look at where Autumn was, how would you like to eat that every day, day in, day out, and be out of control, not able to look after your 4-year-old child, not being a wife, and not of her own making? It wasn't her fault. She didn't do anything to bring this on, you see. But her life was a complete loss at that point, sadly. And then that reformation, that metamorphosis occurred. She wrote the book called The Promise of Hope. I hope that you'll have a chance to read it. It's an incredible spiritual experience to do so. She's been successful. She's helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people just like herself to find normality. It's there. It really is. We just have to reach out and bring the answers to us. This is the book that she wrote, The Astonishing True Story of a Woman Afflicted with Bipolar Disorder and the Miraculous Treatment that Cured Her. If you want a copy, I'm sure that the good people here in Everett and Seattle can get you a copy. Look at her family. Look at where they're coming from now. They're able to function. Look at Joseph. Joseph married a young lady that suffered with bipolar disorder. Her parents couldn't believe the metamorphosis that she went through and how it restored her life. They had so many fears as a mother and father for her life. And now she has that wonderful existence. And Joe's so well. They're both well. And look what they have here. They have 6 children. 2 sets of twins. Amazing. Show me a mom that's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder that can do this. You see, she doesn't have bipolar disorder anymore. It's gone. When I look at the fact that this is proven in science, it has 28 medical journal publications. And I'll show you some of that research in a very quick way. It's been proven in court and approved by the court and endorsed by the courts here in Canada. Well, this is the U.S. It's been proven in practice. Over 200,000 people, plus more, that aren't registered in the database have used this product and found incredible results. I'll explain this to you. You know, it was really interesting. I was doing a a meeting in Idaho Falls for NAMI, the National Alliance of the Mentally Ill. They wanted me to come. It was a big support meeting, put on a presentation. And there was an old British man that came down the stairs after, and he said to me, "Mr. Stephan?" I said, "Yes." "This is hooey." I said, "Hooey?" "Yes, sir, it's hooey." I said, "Why would you say that?" "Because I've been suffering with depression for 18 years. And I've been taking vitamins and minerals, and they haven't helped me a bit." He's right. He's absolutely right. But let me explain to you why this is different. There were certain things that we learned along the route here. Number 1 and 2, more active ingredients. There's 36 different nutrients in this product. You're hitting every deficiency. Critical ratios and balance. We didn't know that calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus have to be balanced off in the proper ratios, and adding boron and vitamin D3 for uptake. We didn't understand that then. The science wasn't out there. We didn't understand that you must balance copper and zinc at a 10-to-1 ratio to optimize it in favor of zinc. If you don't do it, then you actually create problems. We didn't see this stuff. But there was some inspiration that went into that bottle. No question. I can't take credit for it. Neither can the other gentleman that was working with me. I was an engineer. He was a hog feed salesman. And yet this thing came together in a marvelous way. The chelation complexing. Bad terminology. There isn't a term for it that we're aware of. It's so far beyond chelation. We learned how a tomato works. That's a funny statement. How does a tomato work? Well, you plant it in the ground. It pulls elemental or rock minerals like iron oxide. What's that? Rust. That's rust. And it takes rust or iron oxide and it converts it to an organic form of iron. And it does this with all of the minerals, you see. And so when you pluck that tomato and you eat that, you're going to get almost 100% of the nutrition in there because it's in that proper format. You see, most vitamins and minerals are produced in a 3 to 4 hour process. This is 96 hours before it hits the bottle because it has to go through that same process that the tomato plant goes through, or the apple tree, or the carrots. You see? Let me show you. You see those two plants? They have one similarity. Well, they have two. They're green. But the major similarity is they have the same birthday. But look at this plant here. Why is that so much more robust and larger and healthier than this scrawny little guy here? Because what's happening in the soil here is exactly the same process that's taking place with the minerals here before they go in the capsule. We learned how nature does this. Nobody else is doing it that I'm aware of. That's why we take people with the most severest of disorders and we can see them turn around. That is a snowstorm in December in McGrath where we live. I want to show you that picture. There you go. I wish we could grow peach trees. It's too cold there. But I want that one, even though it has the same birthday as this one. It's the same process. What's going on in the soil there? You see? And look at this one. This is extremely elucidating. Where do you want to eat your vitamin? No. Where do you want to eat your vegetables and fruits from? A root system like that or like that? You want it here. Why? It's going to uptake more nutrients. It's going to produce higher levels of enzymes within the plant, vitamins, and more minerals. It's going to be healthier. But I want to tell you something. If you knew that you were eating from here every day, what would you say? Oh, no. I'm buying organic food. Yeah. I'll show you the evidence that's out there. Yes, it's better to eat organic. Don't take me wrong. But our food is starving, and it's starving us. And we have so many results, not just the neurochemical results, things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, lupus, Different disorders like these were being affected because of nutrient deficiencies. And people say that's ridiculous. We live in America. We live in Canada. And we have the best food supply in the world. No, we don't. No, we don't. And I'll show you the evidence from the USDA to that effect. It is shocking when you really get into it. We explode this product into the finest particles so that when you put the capsule in your mouth, 60 seconds later, the ends of the capsule blow out and you've got that powder in your stomach and it's uptaken in a matter of minutes. Just like that. That's why we say you have to eat it with food. You eat 3/4 of your breakfast, you take the capsules, you eat the other quarter in order to prevent any nausea. About 3-4% of people might suffer with a little bit of nausea if they don't. The interesting thing here, the name of the product, the trade name is EMPowerplus. It's an amazing thing. And I'm not going to take the credit for it. To me, it was an absolute answer. And it's helped so many people. And what's the proof? 28 medical journal publishings. And you'll see some of those journal articles from these different universities. And why? Because of the extreme bioavailability. The uptake factoring. That's what changes your body. If you can get nutrients across the gut into the blood system, you're home. You've arrived. And the problem is, most of our nutrients, not in the form of food, I'm not saying food, but these supplements never make it. Most of them are lost within the bowel. Look at this. The United States Department of Agriculture research, not getting enough. Look at this, the percentage of U.S. population, and it's not just the U.S., they could say percentage of global population not meeting the RDA. This is a very low factor, the required daily allowance. That's an old measurement. And it's a very poor measurement because we need far and away more than the RDA supplies to us. But even at that, it's almost 73% of Americans not getting enough calcium. Look at folate. That's why the birth defect rate is so high in America and Canada, because we don't get enough folic acid within our diet. Leafy greens and all these other things, plus supplementing. This is very important for depression and psychotic thought disorders. Zinc. 42% of the population not getting zinc zinc, even to match that. And copper is down to 31% about. There's a study out there called hypozincemia in depression. That means low levels of zinc were found in people with depression. They took two groups, people with mild, moderate, and severe depression. Here you are. There's probably 80 people in the group. I don't have the exact numbers. I could look it up for you. And here, let's say we have 100 controls, people that have no depression whatsoever. They pulled serum or blood sampling, and they worked out an average of zinc per milliliter, of blood. Then they took the group with depression. What did they find? In the basement. And the more severely depressed they were, the lower level of the blood zinc or the serum zinc levels. You see, we need this, but it's not just zinc. It's a synergy. All of these different nutrients combine together to produce that synergy. Look at this. This is what really shocked me, and this has been replicated the world around. 1972, the British Food Journal had an article just like this. There's a number in the EU, number in Canada, a number in the U.S. to match this. United States Department of Agriculture, lower mineral content in U.S. vegetables. They took an adult portion of a salad consisting of cabbage, lettuce, tomatoes, and spinach. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? I'd love to eat that. Throw some dressing on whatever. But they take this and they took it thousands of times and they analyzed how much calcium, magnesium, and iron there was over the years from 1914 to 1997. Well, you can see what's happened. In 1914, there was a little over, summation, 400 milligrams of calcium, magnesium, and iron. And look what happens by the time we get to 1997. I believe that's 18 years ago now. Look at that. It's probably around 65. What does that say to us? It says that if you want the same amount of nutrition, that people got in 1914 on those salads, you now must eat 6.5 platefuls to get the same amount of nutrition. In 1997, let's try 2015. Is it now 7? Is it now 8? It's not getting better, it's getting worse. Our lands are becoming more and more depleted. 1992, the World Summit, the Earth Summit, held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, by the WHO, the World Health Organization, a section of the UN. What did they find? North American topsoils depleted by 82%. China was 37%. What? They've been there for thousands of years. We haven't. How come we're 82% depleted and they're 37%? Because they use the honey bucket. They put all of their raw sewage back on the land. They cycle everything back. We don't. It all gets flushed into the ocean. And we're deficit because of it. And we're suffering. These are the abstracts, and those are available to you. You're able to obtain a copy of that on 16 different disorders. If this will work for this, what will it do when you just want to sharpen the pencil a little bit better? When you want to feel better, when you want to sleep better, when you want your child to progress in school better. Absolutely. 28 medical journals and 10 reviews, so that's 38 studies. This document is available for you. You're able to take that to a doctor, have them look at it, whatever. Amazing research that these researchers have done. It's an estimated $25 million in research. This study here was a shocker. This was a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. This is the gold standard that they say you always have to have. They studied depression and ADHD, major changes. What they found specifically, according to the researchers, they found participants taking the micronutrient formula against the placebo. Part of the people were taking rice flour capsules with a little alum in it, so that if they took it apart, it looked like the minerals. They couldn't tell. But the ones that were taking the micronutrient formula reported greater improvement in inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity was also changed radically compared to the placebo. ADHD down. Then they studied people with depression, and people with moderate to severe depression saw significant change over an 8-week study. That's all it was. Depression down, double blind. Now, just last week, this study came out on autistic children, special needs school research. An investigative reporter went after us, and I'm going to show you the results of that. Dr. Bonnie Kaplan's going to speak to you for just a minute, and Dr. Charles Popper is going to talk about the great historical advance, and he's one of the top psychiatrists in America. He was responsible for bringing lithium to children, but now he uses this program in his practice. He much prefers it because it has a better effect than the drugs. Here we go. Fox 5, Washington investigative reporting.
Nearly 1 in 5 American adults have some sort of mental health issue, some of them minor, some of them severe. Each year, they spend thousands of dollars on medications. But what if you could replace all those medications with just one pill?
What's in these pills is well beyond what you'd find in an ordinary multivitamin. A doctor at Harvard found EMPowerplus helped 19 out of 22 patients with bipolar disorder, and a research team at the University of Calgary also found the supplement has, quote, a beneficial psychotropic effect.
We decided to try it, and it worked. I have seen people feel better than they have in many years, and that's very rewarding. That's what I'm in this work for.
A new study shows high doses of a dietary supplement improved symptoms in the majority of patients.
The patients in this sample got much better, in fact, more than 50% better. Quite a few of them were more than 75% better.
My thoughts are more clear. I don't, it's not all raced and all that, and I feel normal.
I tell you straight from my heart, it gave its life back.
What we're doing here is we're not applying a medication. All we're doing is we're applying proper nutrition, a very whole source of nutrition, and allowing the body to do what it does best. that of synthesizing and producing the various neurotransmitters that give us a proper neurochemical balance.
One of the interesting things that will eventually come out of the EMPowerplus research is that I think we might end up redefining how we think of mental illness. And that will be a huge change.
It's their work over the last 10 years that is why we're here today. And I believe that their work is already historically pivotal in changing the way that psychiatry will be practiced. Make no mistake, this is a historically significant piece of work that's being done.
There's a paradigm shift that's being created, and you're a part of it. And you have an opportunity to assist in healing the world. This is now into Australia, New Zealand, it's coming into Turkey, it's into Germany, Iceland, Switzerland, England. So there's so many wonderful things that are coming as a result. More research than any other micronutrient formula out there ever. It's the best health insurance going. When you take EMPowerplus, you're getting every essential vitamin and mineral that you need. And you add to that the aminos, you're getting 23 free-form amino acids. That means that they don't have to be digested or processed. They're uptaken rapidly. These are the building blocks of the cellular mass within the brain and within the body. This is a healer. And add to that probiotics so that you can uptake it appropriately. It's amazing what you see. I recommend this to any person. Every person should take this. I'm 63 now. I am so much better than when I was 40 years of age because of this technology, this nutrient high technology. So it's been a wonderful blessing. If you are the proud owner of one of those little guys upstairs, then you need this. Just take this stuff and you're going to feel better. Why? Why would you feel better? Because the brain comprises about 2% of your body mass, but 40 to 50% of all your nutrient intake through your lips here is used in the brain function. And if you're feeding this brain with garbage, you know the old computer saying, G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out? That's exactly what happens. But with this, you've got an opportunity to correct that. Remember, every minute of every day, a liter or a quart of blood is flowing through there. You make sure it's topped up with nutrition. Whether it's a small baby, a child, or whatever, you're going to see the benefit of it. Go do this in such a wonderful way. Thank you very, very much for what you're doing and for inviting me to come speak with you. Blessings to all of you. Thank you. Thank you.